Welcome to Maryl Today, where we break down topics that matter, mind, heart, and soul, and break through to solutions you can use to improve your life or business today. I'm your host, Maryl Solis Paz, and this week's topic is enlightenment, what it is, what it takes, and how you can attain it. Let's get to it. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm so glad you could join us for what I know will be a truly magnificent chat with my guest today, Vivianne Nantel. Vivianne, or Devi, as she is often called, is a yogini, spiritual guide, mystic, humanitarian, and speaker, and she's the author of Becoming the Light, a book on realizing your true enlightened nature, and one that I enjoyed and related to so much when I read it. Vivianne, welcome to the show. The first
wonderful pleasure.
I'm honored that you were able to join us today.
The honor is mine.
The first thing I wanted to ask you, in the prologue of your book, you say that any major life event may trigger the beginning of an awakening journey. What event triggered your own awakening?
It was when I went through a major depression. It was the heartbreak. And the heartbreak way back when I was living in Connecticut with Ian, it was all the accumulation I had from my childhood, from what I went through with my father, and then it was brought up into the relationship there, and it was all unconscious, all that I didn't mourn, what I didn't grieve. I had it so heavily inside of my being, and I had fell in love with this man. He had 2 teenagers, and that was really a very strong, it was the, I would say the moment when I started falling into that deep depression. And people were surprised because someone like myself to fall into such a deep, severe depression was really tremendous. And
someone like yourself, meaning somebody positive, somebody
yes,
already. Okay.
I should say that definitely, because when I grew up, I was this child, and I was like that for a very long time, so bubbly, so radiant and vivacious. That's why my mother called me Vivianne,
right.
Because I was so vivacious, alive,
yes.
Full of life, yeah, because V means life, and double life in Vivianne. And so it was shocking to my family, especially my mother. They couldn't comprehend what had happened to myself. And this attempt of commit suicide was very major. And
what brought you to the point of wanting to commit suicide? Was it a deep depression that you didn't address, or was there something else?
It was a deep depression I did not address. I was in denial that I was in severe depression. I was seeing a psychotherapist at the time. Well, I would not maybe say psychotherapist. It was more like a family therapist to discuss my relationship, but all the issue of my childhood all came up to the surface. Everything I had repressed, Marlene, in my childhood, all with my father, the abuse, the verbal abuse, the physical abuse. If you remember from the book, it was so much tragedy and drama in my childhood. I had repressed everything, so it came up to the surface very strong. And then at the time, Ian wanted to, he wasn't sure about the relationship because he was having a lot of his own challenges with his children, and I wanted a commitment. He was not ready, and it was like, it was very painful relationship. And there was a tendency of codependency in our relationship also. And not that we didn't love each other, we love each other very deeply, but it was not a healthy relationship, meaning that you are whole, you are completely a whole. You don't need someone else to fulfill you, to become happy. And true happiness comes from within. It doesn't come from outside. It doesn't come from a relationship. It comes from being completely at one that we are complete within ourselves, and that we could discuss that more about that maybe in this interview. If not, in my book, I talk about that in depth about this divine sacred love relationship.
I do want to talk about that, and you know, and then we'll get back into alignment, because I think that's a really important topic, and one, you know, as a woman, I would love to learn a little bit more about. There's a relationship with Ian, and you said, you know, you became codependent. He was a commitment phobe. And then there's also your own personal process, right? You were growing through this relationship and after it, and then you got into another relationship that was much healthier. But it was also your search for what you call in the book divine sacred love. Can you tell me a little bit about what that is and the difference between that and what you had experienced before with Ian?
Definitely, but before I just brushed the subject, because it's a long subject, and even considering maybe writing another book just on that subject and how to attract it, is I want to say also, when I was referring to the true marriage within ourselves to be all, there is a vast knowledge, spiritual knowledge on that I talk about in my book, in the yogic tradition, the true marriage of Shiva Shakti. And when I mean Shiva Shakti, I don't mean in terms of God and goddesses, I mean in terms of energy. And I'm not going to go into it now, but it's a very important aspect of when one is completely at peace and serene and happy within themselves, and they don't need that outside person to come and fulfill them. That marriage, that's what I'm referring to, the true divine sacred union.
Is that the divine masculine energy within us, as well as the divine feminine energy within us, that we're both honoring and expressing, and therefore we don't need, or, you know, I think also the external then materializes and a whole person also comes to meet us, right? Is that what you're talking about, the energies within us?
No, you could have this person coming and they will be even a more beautiful, fulfilling life.
Because they're also whole.
Yeah, exactly, and you want a whole person. You don't want the other person to complete you. It's not that. You want to be complete within yourself. And yes, it is in terms of Shiva, which means that which that is not, that is the unmanifested consciousness. And then Shakti is energy, is primordial energy, is feminine energy. So this is a vast subject, like I say, and
there's so much, and this is one of my favorite topics, by the way, feminine energy. And I love also how you say in your book that we need the feminine energy in order to heal the planet. And we won't even go into that because there's just so much more. But talk to me about enlightenment. Define it for me. What is it?
Hold on one moment. If we could track back, because I never said what was divine sacred love relationship.
Okay, yes. Define that.
Yeah, divine love sacred relationship. It's not a relationship based on bondage, attachment, all the things we experience normally in a relationship with a partner, an intimate relationship. This one is about walking the spiritual path together, that you are helping each other to grow, to evolve, and to attain liberation. It's all about for a higher purpose, and it crosses all boundaries. So it crosses from ethnic background, economic, social background, age, everything you could imagine, because it's not the kind of relationship that you see what I may call domesticated relationship. Domesticated relationship, there is more like a need. You help me, I fulfill your need, you fulfill my need. You see the difference? Then in the divine sacred love relationship is like you totally are in a sense of abandonment of the spiritual process, because it's a spiritual relationship, it's a spiritual process to go into it. And you don't bring all those, even though they might be there, those aspects that we discuss in a domesticated relationship, but you work them out because you together, you walking the spiritual path. And it's a very empowering relationship. And often what I have seen is it's possible that a couple is in the divine sacred love relationship, which I try with Nathaniel, but the other person has to be very open and receptive for that. And then eventually evolve into that divine sacred love relationship, to walk the spiritual path and to be able to really blossom to our full potential, our human potential. And the core essence of becoming the light is about that. What is our full divine potential? Human, I say divine, but it's our human potential because we're here in the physical form now, we're human, but ultimately we have within ourselves that core essence, that seed that we come here on this planet with that seed that we are already enlightened. But now I brushed very briefly on the divine sacred love. There is much more than that.
There's so much more on that, but back to the topic of enlightenment, since you mentioned it, define enlightenment for us.
Enlightenment is so simple that people miss it. And it's like a fish in the ocean, like I was saying earlier, asking, where is the water? You know, we are, the way, I love this metaphor, you know, the ocean, you see this beautiful wave coming out of the ocean. The wave is not separate, right? It's just a manifestation of that ocean. Every wave is unique as its form, but yet the wave is attached to the ocean. So this is how it is with the source, with God, whatever we call God, Allah, Brahma, Shiva, or the absolute, the supreme intelligence. It's the same. That's like the ocean. We are that wave coming from it. So when you realize your true nature, I say divine nature because I love the word divine, because ultimately that's what we are. We have that divinity, that you realize that you're part of that you're part of the source. You're not separated, that within us, that we are God, we are that essence. And unfortunately, the name God, it's a very loaded word, because a lot of people don't know what's God. You know, and they can talk about it, but experiencing is a different thing. So enlightenment is a very natural thing. We all have it within ourselves. What's happening as we grow and we accumulate a personality, right? And that personality is filled with conditioning, brainwashing, and a lot of it is unconscious. It's accumulated. So that's what forms the personality of a person. And that hides your true, beautiful, natural, magnificent treasure, that enlightened being that you are.
Well, hold that thought, and we're going to talk a lot more about this because this is what we're here to do. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with Vivianne Nantel on the topic of enlightenment.
Cuando estaba en crianza temporal, nunca sabía cuándo me iba a tener que mudar, así que siempre tenía mi maleta lista. Y un día me adoptaron. Mis nuevos padres me abrieron sus corazones y su hogar. Ellos me cocinan mi desayuno favorito todas las mañanas. Mis padres me llevan a viajes que jamás pensé podría ir. Me dieron un hogar y una mejor excusa para usar esa maleta. Mis padres no son perfectos, pero son perfectos para mí.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Welcome back to the conversation with Vivianne Nantel on the topic of enlightenment. Okay, Vivianne, so you defined for us what enlightenment is and what the experience would be like. Can anyone attain it?
Yes, we all have it.
Okay.
Yes.
We all have it, but how come so many of us walk around, you know, either suffering or in pain or not really understanding that is our nature?
Well, a lot of the suffering is self-created, you know, beside major thing happening with us is how we go through life, how we inner engineer ourselves. What I mean by that is how one manage one, you know, how you feel. But I want to talk about what is the experience of enlightenment, because we didn't discuss that.
Okay.
It's a sense of boundlessness, it's a sense of freedom, it's a sense, and of course I can only use words, but it's never like experiencing. It's a sense of lightness, of an expansion of consciousness, of oneness, that you feel that you're connected to everything. And it is that way. You don't have the burden of all the accumulation that we were discussing of a personality, of everything that we accumulate. And what I'm referring is especially the unconscious level, from the media, from the authority, from parents, how one is brought up. So it's really going at the core essence of our spirit, of really who we are. That spirit, not that what was fabricated. And so that experience is it's joyful, it's blissful. Now we can go in a lot of spiritual knowledge on that. We are Satchitananda, that pure, absolute consciousness that is omnipresent, omniscience, that is pure bliss. And when I mean bliss, I don't mean just a natural state of joyfulness, but it's more of a sense of ecstasy, but also enlightened being experience suffering too, is how what we do with it.
The response, rather than the reaction, and all of that.
Well, compulsion is a big thing in the world we live in. Most people live a very compulsive life.
What do you mean by that?
Compulsion is like reactive.
Mm-hmm.
They rule by their samskara. Samskara in the yogic tradition means impression. Impression are like at the cellular level. All what has been accumulated, it's recorded in the physical body. So that's why when you do spiritual practices, especially ancient spiritual practices like intense sadhana, you purified all of that. That's why going on the spiritual path is so important. If one really is looking for true lasting happiness and joy, and especially if they want to awaken to their natural enlightenment, because enlightenment is not something that it's something you realize, and it requires work on oneself.
Do you think it requires, because I know you went through several gurus and teachers, do you think it requires having a guru or teacher in order to achieve this or attain it?
It depends on the person. Generally speaking, I would say yes, because a Sadguru, like I explained in my book, a Sadguru is very different than just a teacher. Everyone is, depending on the level, the receptivity, the openness of the person, depending on the level of evolution the person, where the karmic structure the person has, it depends a lot of things. I would say a big yes. If one is very serious about their spiritual growth, and to find this equanimity, this peace, that serenity within themselves, I think it's essential to have a Sadguru, because a Sadguru, he or she can guide you. But guiding is one thing, and they can also give you more tools. Like in the yogic tradition, there's a lot of very powerful yogic practices that helps, like I said, to purify all of that is been accumulated. Because I'm going to tie it into the compulsion, because if you look at society today, I'm not just referring to the addiction, like food addiction or alcohol addiction or whatever addiction it is, sex addiction. I'm referring just like on a day-to-day, like
the reactivity.
Compulsive, like reacting. Someone pushed your button.
Yeah, the triggers.
They say something and they will trigger. Well, right away, when something like that happens, it tells the person, and most people are not aware of that because, generally speaking, people don't practice mindfulness. But if one is really in tune with their body temple, their own energy, they will know if something pushed their button. So one needs to really pay attention. What is that button? And that often people cannot put the finger on it because it's so deep in the unconscious mind. That's what I was referring. It was accumulated. So that create a compulsion. It's a reactiveness. People constantly live their life in a state of reaction instead of being a master of oneself. Because a Sadguru can really lead you. Their ultimate goal, a true genuine Sadguru, don't care about anything. All they care is that you find your inner divinity, your inner guru, whatever you call it. Guru means, in a way, could means the light.
Dispeller of the darkness is what I read in your book.
That's
I
right.
love that.
Yes, ultimately, if you have to reduce it down, you could just say one word, the light.
Yeah.
They will show you the light. The rest is up to you because nobody can do it for you. We need to do it.
And this reminds me a little bit of your path with a man named Nathaniel in your book, right, who ends up being your husband. And something that I've always felt strongly about with a woman's role, you marry him and you continue your path growing spiritually. You go to classes, you go to India, you do trainings, and you invite him to join you, but he doesn't, and he puts up a lot of resistance. By the end of the book, I hate to spoil it, but for those of you who are going to read it, and you should read it, he joins you. Do you feel that a woman's role is very much sort of guiding, sometimes her partner into the spiritual path, and how has that worked for you?
What was the last phrase you said? That what?
How has it worked for you, and do you feel that a woman's role, part of it, is to bring her man that spirituality, right, and into that spiritual path if he's not already on it?
Definitely, it's essential. And because women, we are so much more open and receptive, maybe because it's our biology, to bring birth, to bring life, to create. We're very creative, we women. And so that energy is of the divine feminine energy, what I talk in my book, Shakti, Mahashakti, which is also very synonymous with Kundalini and Prana. We so much more open, receptive to that energy. So it's natural for us that we want to help others, especially our beloved one, our partner. We want to grow together. We want to evolve. We want to blossom. And it's crucial, we women, that we take a role today, especially today, because it's so necessary that we come to help humanity and children and the animals. And it's definitely the role for women to bring their men on the spiritual path. But I have to say, though, I have seen some men, they're very in touch with their feminine, divine feminine energy of Shakti. And it's beautiful to see that. But because of society, and when I mean divine feminine energy, I'm not referring to in terms of gender, as we discussed earlier.
Just the energy that we all have, or the energy potential we all have within us, that is the feminine aspect or expression of that.
Well, Shakti is everywhere. Shakti is what animates and create what we see today. And I go in depth there in the spiritual knowledge in the book, and little by little as we go into the story. And so there are some women who are more in touch with their masculine side. We all have both on each side. But like I said, because of our gender, generally speaking, we women are more in touch with Shakti, with the divine feminine energy. And so it's more conducive for wanting to not only help our partner, but help others. When we see people suffering, I think for me, the biggest motivator was to write Becoming the Light is I've gone through so much suffering, so much pain, and the wisdom I have acquired and what I've lived is so extraordinary. I wanted to share it with the world, for them to realize you're not alone, we're never alone, that you can find within yourself that beauty inside of you, the treasure that is waiting to awaken fully. And what is our true potential is so phenomenal.
And that is probably why I do what I do too. And if you go on my website, you'll see it's so that we all realize that none of us are alone. So I'm right there with you. Still to come, my conclusions on the topic and conversation, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
I understand. I know it's not your typical resume.
Okay, well,
But candidate. But I've been working double shifts just to pay for books. I've been raising my 2 little brothers. I'm determined, driven, motivated. Isn't that what you're looking for?
Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org.
Caminábamos hacia la escuela.
Me puse a pensar en el almuerzo.
Ella es
Hubiera preferido
inteligente,
pizza, como la que
pero deja
tiene
volar
los
su
bichis.
mente.
Ahí hay un videojuego.
Recuerdo haberle dicho, Laura, el cartel dice no camine.
A veces leer es muy difícil.
Realmente espero que hoy no le vaya mal en la escuela.
Cuando usted ve las dificultades de aprendizaje y de atención de su lado, se pondrá de su lado. Visite understood.org, un recurso gratuito en línea con apoyos y herramientas para que su hijo progrese.
I feel like there's so much more that we needed to talk about with Vivianne. Maybe we'll have to have her back. But here's what I want to leave you with. It's clear that a path to the light, whatever that may look like for you, cannot be walked without going through some darkness. Do not be afraid of walking the path regardless. Trust that the people, the situations, and events that take place in your life are divinely designed to help you see, shift, and grow into the person that you're meant to be today and the person that you will become tomorrow. My hope for you today is that you don't despair in the moments of darkness and that you learn to surrender to what is and begin to embrace the beauty in this journey to enlightenment that we are all meant to take, even if you stumble a little along the way. I'd like to thank my beautiful guest today, Vivianne. Thank you for being here with us.
It's so lovely to be here.
And for all her experience and wisdom that she shared with us today on the topic of enlightenment. And of course, thank you to our wonderful sponsors. And as always, all my gratitude to and for my amazing crew. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Maryl Tweets and Facebook and Insta at Maryl Solis Paz for more insights and inspiration. Until next time, I'm Maryl Solis Paz, wishing you and yours paz, amor y luz.